Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Deal with Vehano Joseph. This is a show dedicated to all levels of entrepreneurs looking to scale and improve their lives. So let's dive on in with our next guest. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Deal with Vehano Joseph. And today I am exhilarated to have one of our very, very special guests here, Courtney Folk. And Courtney is somebody who really just embodies resilience, innovations, and just that true entrepreneurial grit. She's the CEO and co-founder of Renewal Logistics, a company that is making huge waves in the logistics and supply chain industry. Courtney has taken Renewal from an idea to a thriving enterprise, helping top brands and complex logistics guys, complex things that they solve and make things streamlined for their customers. Her story is just something that's just something of beauty. So, welcome, Courtney, and let's get to it.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Thank you. So for the listeners, I've just always admired other entrepreneurs that are just so successful in solving complex problems, right? I think one of the things I've always loved about, the Tony Robbins and those guys is always like, in order to create value in the world, you need to solve a problem and solve that for that customer. And that's what a business is. And you've just embodied that to the next level. So please tell the listeners about you and, your company.
Okay, sure. So yes, we are in the logistics and supply chain space. The way I kind of characterize our company is that we're fulfillment for the fashion industry. So we work with a lot of giant apparel brands that you've heard of and that you're probably wearing right now. We work with like Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Izod, Speedo, Carter's, the baby clothes company, Warner Co. and Olga that are in the underwear space. We have about 50 giant brands that we work with. And then we work with a whole lot of medium and small apparel companies as well. And so for the giant companies, they come to us when they have Carter's is a good example. During COVID, all their stores shut down. So they had to have immediately all the product that was in their stores converted to be able to be sold for e-com. So we, within a week, set up a new location and had, we were turning out 500,000 units a week for them. And we had hundreds of workers set up in a new space. And it was just like blow and go, push through the volume, get it done for them so they could get it, so they could start selling it online. And, we've done that for about a decade of working with these giant companies doing that. And then about 5 years ago, we decided that we kind of understood the whole chain of operations for the giant brands. But we really want to be providing value to companies where it's really going to make a difference in their business. And so we started going after small and medium-sized apparel companies, fashion brands, to take everything we learned from the giant companies and support them in a way that, we could see that they're about to really take off. But if they have the wrong partner, it could stop everything for them. It could stop all of their momentum. So if we can kind of be their partner and get in there and give them a very secure operational underpinning, then they just focus on sales and drive their business forward and keep all their manage, really capitalize on all of that momentum that they can get. And so we now work with, hundreds of brands, and we have here in Atlanta, we have 5 locations. We have a location in South Carolina, and then we have some West Coast presence as well. And, we just do a lot of things. We do receiving their goods, storing them, pick, pack, and shipping them into retailers like Macy's and Dillard's or Amazon, as well as handling their direct to consumer B2C volume, and everything in between, everything that happens to make sure that works for them and it's perfect every single time.
So from a logistics standpoint, you're literally the distributor for these major brands into everything: customers, retailers, big box stores, everything.
Yeah, that's right. So we work with about 140 different big boxes. So Walmart, Target, Macy's, you name them. And we have, and what we'll do for the giant companies as well, like our partnership with CK and Tommy is all about whenever they have orders that are going into these big retailers, they'll bring all that volume over. Our business is literally in their parking lot. And so we have trucks that come back and forth between our two buildings all day long. And they'll pull the orders that need to ship out for the next day, and we'll go through and get them all compliant for all the retailers. So we'll They'll have like one stock of all their underwear items, and then it's going to be sold in Urban Outfitters and, 20 or 30 different retailers. So we'll open up the stock, get it prepped for Urban Outfitters or for Macy's or Dillard's, specific to the way that their distribution centers work, so that it's going to work within their automation. When it comes in their building, it'll just go immediately through their systems and can go directly into stock. And that's a really big deal because that's super hard to get right. And there's usually a lot of chargebacks that come from it. And so we prevent these companies from having chargebacks.
Wow. So you're solving a major problem for them, right? Like, it sounds like there is a, the gap that you're filling is, hey, I'm good at you're good as a manufacturer at building product and making the product, but let us handle that supply chain leg so that you have your fulfillment, right? Because it's that the whole cycle. It's not just one part. You know, we all look at businesses sometimes as different silos. So you're looking at, oh, I'm really good at putting this product together, but you don't get paid until that product's in the customer's hand and that's sold to the final consumer. So very amazing. It makes my head spin just thinking about all of those logistics. It's incredible. Wow. What brought you to this business, and what got you into this space? It's just very unique.
Yeah. So that's, I wonder that all the time too. I'm like, how do we get there from here? Get here from there. So when Brian, my husband, and I got engaged, he was a chemist in South Carolina for the state. He did kind of what you see on like NCIS or CSI. He was a chemist for the drug ID lab for
Wow.
law enforcement, and he hated his job. He was like, there are parts of it that it's fun, but it's a bureaucracy, and there's people don't have a work ethic. And no matter how hard I work, I'm never going to make much money. So he kind of hated his job. And I had a corporate sales job at Alltel, and I kind of hated mine too. And so we were like, well, your parents have this dry cleaning business. Why don't we get in there and learn about being an entrepreneur and see what being in business for yourself is all about. And then we'll figure out what to do after we get in there and get the learnings out of it. And so we did that for a couple years, grew that to be one of the largest in South Carolina in the retail space. And then we sold it. And then we started focusing on how do we take the same equipment and technology and experience and 100x or 1000x our units per customer. So then we were like, okay, insurance restoration, where we're cleaning everything in a customer's home that's made of fabric. Let's focus on that. And then so by 2008, we were actually the largest in the US that's independently owned for handling apparel items for customers who've had house fires. And so we went and targeted like State Farm and Allstate and Nationwide and ServPro and ServiceMaster, and just built relationships based on super high quality, like a really high quality presentation to the customer, a great customer experience where we're touching them after every pickup and delivery. We'd actually go in and reorganize the customer's closet, make their beds. Like by the time we left their house, it felt like they never even had a claim before.
Wow.
And that like value proposition just kind of like took off, and it was like fire. It was like wildfire and grew really fast. But we got to the point with that business where it was like, okay, for us to scale this nationally, we're going to have, 30 buildings, 40 different locations, and we're going to have massive teams. We were like, I just don't know if we really want to do that. We don't want to keep moving around like that. So then in 2013, we were approached by this really giant brand, and they had like 300,000 pairs of jeans that were covered in mold that came over from their factory, and they had to sell it into Costco really fast, and they didn't have a solution for it. So then we were like, okay, you know what? We can do this. And this is our opportunity to break into another market where all of a sudden the units per customer are like 100,000 or 1,000,000 per customer.
It is incredible. I did not know that. So you guys were doing like mold remediation on this product, or was it just like on the outside of the? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Like jeans, you
amazing.
open up these boxes and they have like 60 pairs of jeans in each box, and it's like they're hairy.
Okay. Well, that's really fascinating because when we look at life, it's never linear, guys. Like if you're picking up from the story, they've taken something from where you're fed up and not fulfilled and not happy and have made a difference in their lives. They went back from, hey, let's go and see what this entrepreneurial thing's about. Let's see what, what helping the family would be like. And from that, it sounds like you've just continuously evolved and really, I love the question that you guys have asked yourselves, like, how do you scale this 100x? How do you scale this 100,000x? Like, and not a lot of people think like that. And even entrepreneurs, right? Like entrepreneurs get so bogged down into that day to day. That is just really, really amazing. I commend you guys. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we were you have to definitely humble yourself in business, and there's a lot of like, in our case, we were both kind of fancy, we're not necessarily going to be people who are going to love the dry cleaning business. We like having vacations and weekends off and not working in a hot, steamy environment, and that's what that business is like. So
And you're talking about like the on the corner laundry business,
yeah,
or okay,
yeah,
laundromats, like, those are some of the companies that you can go out and buy today.
yep.
If you're in a corporate job and you're stuck and you're just like, hey man, I need to just have my own thing. Because some of us do. We get to that point where we're just like, yeah, there's no upward momentum, or things are just stuck in their way. There's other opportunities out there. So wow, okay, so we're talking about on the corner, dry cleaner, drive up window.
Very
Amazing.
humble, very
Yeah.
humble business. And
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, then you have to be willing to be taught by your customers, right? Which means you have to acknowledge that you don't know anything. You have to acknowledge that you are dumb as a rock and you're going to have to teach me everything. And the better you are at like saying that, but at the same time, reminding people that actually you're not dumb. You just don't know the industry yet,
Yeah.
because look at all these other things you've done. And so you're competent, but you're willing to learn. And then if you get your customers to teach you, and then you're talking to your customers constantly, they're going to tell you their problems, and they're going to tell you the things that, they would pay good money for someone to
Yeah.
take off their hands. And that's kind of been our thing the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's clear. It's very, very clear, because it evolved to that next step. Like, okay, what else can we help you with? And do you think that, that kind of goes into another segment? I was going to ask you, what are some of the key strategies that you use to scale? And it sounds like that was part of it, right? Just listening to your customer and understanding their problems and being willing to evolve with your customer.
Yeah, so the way that I think you have to look at scaling. So we've got other businesses too, right? So like these are the main ones, but we've also been in product sales and done very well with product sales. So it comes down to a few things. It comes down to, how do you make that decision to move, right? Because we're all given all these ideas every day of new opportunities. So it's like, how do you know if it's the right one? And I think the way that we've always looked at it is, we're not going to waste our time on something that can't be really big, right? So as soon as we've realized that something wasn't going to be able to be really, really big, we know we need to start focusing on something else. And so we've actually had 7 different companies that we've gotten to 8 figures. And so it's definitely been an evolution and a pivot of these different companies, but that's always been what was the driver for us to evolve was, okay, are we satisfied with where this is? And is it going to ever get us to our goals? And we always kind of had a vision of like where we wanted to be. So how far can this actually take us to get there? And sometimes it's not going to take you all the way, but maybe it can take you from $0 to $2 million, right? So,
Right,
okay,
right, right.
get to 2 million and your goal is to get to 100 million. So once you get to 2 million, then you may have to figure out a new solution. But so I think that's one thing, is really kind of always keeping the goal in mind, and like being not emotionally invested in what you're doing right now, to where if you need to make a change, you can. And then the second thing, and this is the thing I'm learning is the most important thing in the world, is like, you have to surround yourself with people who are exactly like you, from that perspective of like really motivated, really driven to take care of other people and to solve problems, humble and willing to learn.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do. Like that, most people
Right.
that people do not want to get their hands dirty. They
Yeah.
just don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you get them in and out quickly so that you're not holding on to people too long that are going to deteriorate your culture?
Mm. And that's so true, because you're building your culture and your brand, right? And bringing in outsiders is always a challenge, because you're adding another layer of someone else's brand and image, right? And even though they work for you, they will encompass that kind of culture from where they've come from. And I always have these examples of people like, well, that's not how I used to do it, or whatever, right? Like those
Yep.
types of people that are so stuck in their ways and not growth oriented. And in one of the things you mentioned earlier about being able to pivot and change directions, right? Like that's not a easy thing for most people. So how have you been able to navigate some of those situations, and or is it something that you're just continuously improving on?
So, I think it requires a super high pain tolerance, to be completely honest. Like a super, super high pain tolerance. Like, so in every business, every time we have evolved into a new industry, there's this process of getting to critical mass. And so you're having to pull things from all these different places and put them together, and nothing fits yet, right? The process of getting the puzzle pieces to fit is what's painful. And it's like constant friction, and it's constant unknowns and constant swapping puzzle pieces out that aren't the right fit. And so you're trying to sell something that you don't even know how to do yet. And you're trying to appear competent. And so for me, it's like, how do you appear the most competent and not sell something in a way that's going to ultimately cost you so much money you're not going to be able to survive, or make you damage your reputation because you can't perform. And so it's like a scramble. It's a constant scramble of figuring that out. So I think you have to start small. You have to get a customer that's really small, that that if you work really hard and just put all your, sweat equity into it, you're probably going to figure it out. I think that's the first thing. And then you are like, look, I need your feedback. Tell me what's working and what's not. And then you just iterate based on that feedback. And then it's like, okay, what do you have to do to get a bigger customer? So like right now, I know I can service a customer that's, shipping, let's say in the beginning, when we first started fulfillment, it was like, okay, I know I can service a customer that's shipping 500 units a month very easily. I know I can do that. So let me go find a lot more 500 unit a month customers. And then it was like, okay, these are great, but we are never going to get where we want to get if we don't figure out how to service 10,000 unit per month customers, and then
Mm.
50,000 unit per month customers, and then a million unit per month customers. And it's like, it's just finding the resources and the answers to the questions that when you're in a sales call with someone, stop the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, okay, well, I failed at this one because we didn't have the right answer, but I'm not going to fail the next time I have that one. And so it's like, again, that pain tolerance, like the tolerance for failure, because if you're pushing yourself, you're always going to be in a position of failing. The only time you're not failing is if you're too comfortable, really.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, it sounds like you've got to fail upwards, right? You got to get to the no before you get to the yes, right? So it's one of those things, you just keep practicing that muscle, and it will grow and get better. That's amazing. You really embody this growth mindset, which is when I listen to what you're saying about going from 1,000 fulfillments a month to 1 million fulfillments a month, it's just phenomenal. What are some of the techni- technological things that you've implemented, or would you say you guys are pretty tech savvy in this space? Because it sounds very complex from a logistics supply chain. Do you guys use specialized software, or do you have like specialized systems for that? You don't have to go into
Yeah.
specifics.
No,
Just
yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the thing that's the most interesting about our business is that you're dealing with low paid workers, right? You're dealing with like entry level workers. And then you also have this huge math component. Like our business is very, very, very driven by plugging in as many units in a building as possible. So there's tons of Excel that's being used. And then there's also these people who are executing that have no experience with Excel. And then, in our business too, apparel is the most complex piece of it. So like if you have 3 SKUs, if you have a product that has like 3 colors and it's the same every other way. Or with apparel, though, you're dealing with like thousands of different variations. And so a lot of the automations that are kind of like out of the box for our industry are really not that available or usable for our companies. So we've had to do a lot of like homegrown solutions. So like, for instance, a warehouse execution software. So we build a time clock, and that time clock tracks every single person. And we know by the second what our burn is per day in terms of our labor spend. And then we know by the second how many units have we pushed out. And we know at any moment, okay, we're operating at a 30% margin today, or okay, we're actually under today, because we're dealing with
Wow.
hours at a time.
Yeah.
And so a minute is extremely expensive. If we stop and have like a 3-hour, group meeting where we go and spend, all this time on orientation, it's costing us a fortune. So we have to figure out how to like immediately get a new person who's coming in for the first day up to speed and hitting the targets that we need. So we've spent quite a lot of effort. And luckily for me, I think one of the ways that our company's been successful in growing is that my husband, he is a brilliant operator. And then he's also has this like technology component. So we've been used Salesforce since 2008. And so he has actually been the one to develop our Salesforce instances for all of our companies. And so he cuts out, usually in the design process and software, you have an idea, then you have a designer, then you have a production person, and then somewhere in there you have a project manager, and then you have a final output. So you've got all these layers. And it almost never comes out the right way on the other end because of that telephone game,
Yeah.
But for us, Brian can cut all of that out. He can
Right.
cut all that middle part out. So we can build really fast solutions for each new customer with very little, effort, as long as we don't have too much of a queue with those customers, right? Like he can only do so much. He's one
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've built a lot of internal softwares, and then he has a team of people who he's training up to teach how to do these things themselves. He's probably always going to be the designer, but they're the ones who can fix things when they get broken, or make small modifications, or
Right.
create new
Right.
views of it to make it usable for other customers.
That's amazing. Yeah. Technology really is one of those love-hate things for me, because it's always as good as your employees can utilize, right? So if they are not utilizing it, then it's just this big subscription that you're paying to someone for nothing.
Like, that's so 100% true.
So really, really, really love that. And business is obviously the execution of things is one side. And getting the sales and processes and technology right is important. One thing I would love to know is, on the finance side of things, like, what are some of the decision-making tools that you use to decide whether to reinvest or expand, or how do you guys approach those things from a business standpoint? Are are there certain metrics that you look at before you decide, okay, we can proceed into this or proceed into this? It sounds like that you had, if it does not meet this criteria, I'm not going to go for it. But
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about how you guys make those decisions on the finance side.
Man, that's a great question. So that first job, right? The one where we were called by a big brand and they had 9 truckloads of jeans that had to be cleaned in 2 weeks. What I did for that, I think what we do is we visualize what's going to be needed and what's it going to cost. So we'll say, like, I knew in that one, I was like, okay, we're going to need space. We're going to need workers. Here's the amount of money per hour for the workers. We're going to need forklifts. We're going to need, tables. And so I kind of did some back of the math envelope and said, okay, here's what our spend is going to be. And back at that time, I don't think we really had the best understanding of like units per hour and how to kind of time study that out.
Yeah.
But, I did have a general idea, and I was like, okay, this is what this project's probably going to cost us. And so then our price needs to be, more than that. And that's kind of what that was like. And then, but now we have like a finance team that helps us model things out. So we're in the middle of an acquisition, and it's a business that's underperforming. The customers are very happy, but it's not making money like it should. And so
Mhm.
we're taking it on, and it's basically free because they're losing money and they just want out of losing money. But for us, it's like, okay, what do we have to do? What do we have to do within this business to fix the issues? And how much is it going to cost? And how long is it going to take for that to get resolved? And then at that point, what is it going to look like for the next, for the next 6 months or a year? How long is it going to take for us to get back to cash positive? And then once it is cash positive, how long is it, how much is the yield going to be over time? So, a lot of that you can kind of have an idea of, but it's really nice when you have like a really strong partner that can help on that side. We have really great financial advisors it's been a journey to find people who can do
Right.
that,
Right.
are actually kind of like mentally in it to win it the same way that we are, because you can get some really bad advice on that if you're not careful.
Mhm.
Um, but that's kind of how we make decisions. And then like for some of the products, it was like, okay, we know on Amazon that, we want something that that everyone in America could buy. And we want something that is going to be, but so that our risk is low. And then we want something that our shipping cost is going to be cheap on, so that there's going to be a decent spread. And so like, and things that are not so saturated in the market that we're going to have to pay a fortune to advertise, but something
Mm.
that's needed enough where there's probably a lot of like, people are going to be searching for this item. So I think
Yeah.
it's just,
Like
you know,
high demand.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
Awesome.
it's like for us with any decision, it's like, okay, can we afford it without having to take on debt? Because
Mm.
we don't believe in debt. And so, okay, can what we're doing right now and the profit we're making right now cover whatever the next thing is for a period of time, and how long? So, and then we have like a burn rate, right? Like, okay, we know we can do this for 3 months until we're in real
In new
trouble.
revenue. Yeah. Okay. So you're always forecasting out, looking at the future, like, okay, we need to bring in X because our burn rate is Y. And, that will be a key indicator for you to then say, hey, sales team, get out there, do your thing, or come up with new incentives or whatever, right? So that's amazing.
And we're very,
Amazing.
very, very, very transparent with our team about where we're going and what money it is that we need to get there. Because there's so many components, right? There's the production people have to hit the right numbers to
Yeah.
actually create a margin. The collections people have to collect the money in the right timeline. It has to be billed at the right time. Salespeople have to sell it. So it's like everyone has a piece in making this train move.
Yeah.
And if a piece doesn't, we're all going to lose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 No, I think that's beautifully said because, we were just going through this in one of my companies and I had to make a tough decision. And, ultimately it will be the right decision because if one of those components break, you cannot get you're not going to get to profit.
Yeah.
So, ultimately what are we in business for is to make profit. It just is part of the game. I'm not here to sit here and make losses. I want to go out and make profit. So, yeah, I love that. What are, I know being a CEO and is stressful and it has a lot of demands on, just being that person. What are some of the things that you do or habits you do, just to help you stay as effective and focused like you've been?
That's such a great question. So I think for us, it's a few things. First of all, we were married and we work together, so we try not to talk about anything negative after 5. But that sometimes when you're starting something new and it's just painful for like 2 years straight, you can't help but talk about negative, because you got to figure out a place time to talk about it, and you're
Yeah.
scrambling for the day. But that's one thing that we try. And then I really think that like you need to have a person who is focused on the vision. And then you need to have a person that's focused on the tactical daily. And that's kind of the thing with Brian and I. That's been our dynamic. So I've always had that ability and time to focus on the future. And I think that's like so critical, because then you can see what's coming next and you can prepare the team for what's coming. And so there's that. I think for me personally, there's so much chaos when you're standing up a new business that it can be very depressing. And so I visualize for all the times we've done this, what does it look like 3 years in when it
Mm.
finally gets great? Like I know I'm going to be able in another 6 months to be able to be away for 6 weeks at a time on vacation again. see that in my future, even though it's not now. So like having that visualization of what you know is coming, and then having that confidence in yourself that you know you can get there because you've done it before and you've been successful before. And it's all like business is not rocket science. It's just sweat equity. It's really elbow grease and making some smart decisions, but really digging in to make sure performance is right. And so, since it can be really anxiety causing and depressing until it gets to where it's no longer like a startup and it's out of that critical mass, I write in a journal every day, and I talk about what great things happened. I document the wins,
Mm.
and then I talk about, a line or two about what was a struggle. And then I rate my day of like, how good a day it was today. So then if I have 3 days straight that are crappy, I can look back and I can be like, yeah, this has been a terrible week. I hate my life at this moment, but look how great last week was. It was all nines last week.
Wow.
So I think that's really helpful. And then I pray a whole lot. I pray a whole lot.
Yeah, welcome to the club. Yes, that's amazing. So really, really great advice there. Documenting your journey, is it's such a skill that is not really taught anymore. People don't really, it's not so widespread out there. Like, hey, journal and rate your day. I thought that's very, very cool, because some days, life is not the straight line. It's, you have your ups and downs, and but generally it's up, but you need
Yeah.
to zoom out and see, okay, well, it's not all doom and gloom and all of that. So no, that's wonderful advice, Courtney. I really appreciate that. Awesome. I know we're getting to kind of the end of our show here, and this has been jam-packed full of great advice and just an amazing story. What's one piece of advice you would give to an entrepreneur who's in the early stages of just, either starting or scaling their business? What's one piece of advice that you would give?
Um, I think that you have to so when I was in the dry cleaning business, I didn't believe in the mission. I didn't have passion about the industry. I didn't, it wasn't like I was doing something that was changing the world. It was like,
Yeah,
I'm here to make $1 and to learn. Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that, a lot of people wait for this passion to come to create like this, business. Like you don't have to be passionate about a business. You just have to get started, and you have to be passionate about learning, and you have to be extremely competitive with yourself. You have to be competitive that you're going to take this to the next level. And it's got to be, it's like, what people love about working out is like, and by the way, I don't like to work out. So I hear this is what people like about it, but they like the idea of like challenging themselves to get to a goal and to continue to see what their body can endure and what strength they can endure. And I think you have to be a good entrepreneur, you have to have that same mental athleticism
Mm.
of like constantly challenging yourself for more. And so you're a little bit of a masochist from that perspective, but you have to love that grind, and
Mm.
you have to love the idea that like today, I don't know how I'm going to make it in 6 months, but I know I'm going to. And like, you have to look at all of the fear and the chaos and the like uncertainty of being an entrepreneur like it's an amazing adventure. And, you're like we're whitewater rafting. And, the raft is that crazy path that you're on. And the river is the fear. And you're sitting above the fear, and you're going to ride that fear, and you're going to turn it into an amazing ride. Um,
I love that. What a great analogy. Unbelievable. So I definitely agree with you 110,000%. It's not an easy ride, but it's a worthwhile ride, right? It's that adventure. It's something that challenges you every day and gives you that ability to design to live your life by your design, right? I think that's what that entrepreneurs, that's what we take on. One of the things I was taught in even back in corporate days was, be comfortable being uncomfortable,
mhm.
because that's where growth comes from. It's not when you're comfortable and complacent, and you're not growing. And, you don't want to be caught in that position, because, anything can happen. So I really love that, Courtney. Thank you so much for that. yeah, what, just to kind of wrap up, what's next for Renewal? What, are there any new initiatives or goals or things that you guys are trying to achieve next year? And I know it sounded like there was anything that, that's exciting you.
Yeah, so we have some really cool partnerships that are coming along that I can't specifically speak to, but I can just that like, we've spent the last all these years figuring out how to create a model that can really be scalable. And I think in this next year, we're going to have some really explosive growth. Like it's really exciting. So we 4X'd in this last year, and I expect we're going to at least do that again in 2025, if not more. And it is just, this is the time that you work as an entrepreneur to get to so you can enjoy what we're going through at this point. So it's really, really fun because we've got just about every customer has given us a referral to another brand, which means we've got that virality that's happening in our business.
Yeah.
So I think we're really going to continue to implement the same things over and over again. And like I said, working on some really interesting partnerships that can give us a lot more kind of brand presence out there in the world.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm going to be working on in this next year. And I really, I have this real estate idea that I told you about, and I think we're about a year from being able to start implementing that. And I'm really excited about that too.
Yeah. That's very, very exciting. And I think it's a brilliant idea. But in all your ideas are brilliant. So amazing. So Courtney, where can people, see and learn more about Renewal? What's good social things that people can reach you guys at?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. Courtney Folk, or I think it's Courtney D Folk or Courtney Folk on LinkedIn. Our company is Renewal Logistics, and we've got a page for that. But I really I'm on my own page a lot, and I talk a lot about like company culture and values there. And then I'm on Instagram as well, Courtney D Folk. And there it's more like what funny things happen in my life and what, that's where I'm having fun. And then I'm also looking at like, I'm constantly consuming great content. And so the things that I think are really awesome that I see, I like to share those as well in my stories. So
Yeah.
I would say Instagram is my favorite, but I do a lot on LinkedIn too.
Yeah, guys, go follow Courtney and just watch them grow. What a wonderful company. Courtney, thank you so much for taking the time and excited to see you grow in 2025, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me here, Vehano. Always great to see you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.